Hello, everybody. We are starting our forums for all of those in the back that would like to take a trip to Egypt. Come on over. There's still tickets available. And for all of our online attendees, thank you for joining us this morning. You're in for a real treat. And as you come over, you'll also see all the amazing artifacts that are available for you to peruse on our tour. And I will actually get out of the way and just thank you so much all for being here for today's forum. It's an honor to see old friends and new. We are in for a real treat, and we are going to find out about the gift of the Nile from Koresh and Jill's recent trip to Egypt. So give it up for our presenters this morning, and I'll pass it to them.
I carry the suitcase. And Jill will be the one who will be most of the talking today. Okay.
Yep. Well, thank you all for coming. You know, it's no fun if you give a party and nobody shows up. And we appreciate you online too. And so this was in November when we went to Egypt. Beautiful weather there, 80s during the day. And actually they said bring something warm for the cool evenings, and we did wear our light jackets on a few times. So it's kind of perfect. And you can look at the books I brought, you can go online and you can see all the treasures of Egypt, and we're going to get a little into that when we're talking about the culture and our experience itself. And okay, I'm going to show.
Sure.
There's a picture of Egypt. You kind of get an idea of where it is in the world. And if you go all the way down, I'm not sure, oh, you're seeing there, to the south, that way down, Abu Simbel, you see that? That is right next to Sudan. Okay. And there's the idea, it's the gift of the Nile, and there is a Nile. And the Nile there would be no Egypt without the Nile, because everybody had to live on the banks of the river. You know, it's country's mostly desert where nobody wants to live. But with the rivers, you could have crops, and the river, though it's 1,000 miles long and has no cataracts. So, and it's a very gently flowing, even when it floods, it's very gentle. So they could just have river boats going up and down, which would unite the country. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the country. Well, this is we're on the Aswan Dam and looking at Lake Nasser, which is back up behind the dam. And when you're talking about Egypt and you talk about Upper Egypt, you're going south with the river. And when you talk about Lower Egypt, you're going north. Yeah, something you got to get used to.
You think about the Red River here. That's
Yeah. And it's about 3/4 the size of Alaska. I just wanted to see something to put it, against. And it's and 75% of the country's bone dry. They get from less than 1/4 of an inch up to 4 inches of rain a year. It's just plain dry, and boy, did your skin know it.
the term Egypt is a gift of the Nile was coined by Herodotus, which is a long time ago, and he knew the effect of the Nile on the population and the civilization.
Okay. I'm just looking at my notes here. And this is a view of the dam from Lake Nasser when you're on the Nile. Okay. And this shows some of the green that's growing. As you may have heard, the Nile would seasonally flood from the rains up in Sudan. And then they would flood the land and grow crops. And the flood left sediment from upper river, which made the land fertile. Now that they have the dam, they don't have the flooding. And so they do have to use fertilizer.
Okay, there's a Blue Nile and the White Nile. The White Nile is actually coming all the way from Lake Victoria and it brings the silt down from there. The Blue Nile is coming from Ethiopia area.
And they used to grow a lot of cotton. Now if you go there and you buy cotton, it's not necessarily from Egypt. But during the Roman times, and this comes from around 300 BCE to 300 AD, when the Christians came in and so what was I saying? Oh, they also fed Rome with their wheat. And okay. Oh, another thing about agriculture, just because they're at it, now that they have to, when they grow crops, whether it's cotton or grain or bananas, they grow it for 2 years, then they let it go fallow for 1 year. You know, if you learn that in your grade school, then they plant alfalfa, which fixes nitrogen into the soil and refurbishes it, and the alfalfa feeds the animals. Now, on our first day there, we went a day early, which you all know if you're traveling internationally, you do that, and they had a list of things we could do. And one of the things was this Coptic. Coptic just means Egyptian Orthodox. I got my memory slips. And they have their own writing, which is Greek. And this was cut into rock, so it's just a beautiful place to see. And that's an icon like you would see in any Coptic church or Orthodox. This is very interesting. We went to a couple of these churches, and you probably can't read this, but so I'm going to read it to you. If I put it in a bigger, can you read it? It says, I'm going to read it here. Stone from the cavern's original stone where Jesus Christ lived. You remember from the Bible, you who had the Bible, that the Holy Family went down into Egypt to keep Jesus from being killed. Although the Egyptians have no record of this. But they have several of their tales that really look like somebody borrowed them from them or they borrowed them from the Bible. I'm not sure which. But anyway, you could in Egypt, you could go like 8 different places where they went. When they went, they didn't stay in one place. They went to 8 different places. So you can go on a pilgrimage at 8 different places and help the economy of those sites.
And more to come in the future.
Oh, darn, I was going to erase this and I forgot. What I was trying to show you, this doesn't do it well. When you see a dome, the people here, they figured out how to make a dome when you have square walls. And if you have 4 walls that go on top and half moon on top, and out of that, you can make a dome. So next time you see a dome, look for that. This is not a good picture. I forgot to delete it.
If you ever went to Florence, you know, the Bertolesi Dome and the cathedral in Florence, the big one, they use the same concept of getting domes around the domes in others to support the bigger dome.
Okay, and we also visited a few of the Islamic places. And if you go to your left is the tomb of Muhammad Ali. Now, to be named Muhammad Ali is like being named Thomas O'Brien if you're from Ireland. Maybe they're all over the place. But he, in around year 1000 Common Era, really got Egypt into being a country that it is today. So he is revered. I don't know who the other tomb is from. I don't remember. Okay, can we get the sound here?
That's the one slide that
Okay, we couldn't get it. This is the only one that had sound because we have the their Imam giving the call to prayer. It's not going to work today. So you just have to imagine when you have.
Isn't that something that St. Paul now has called to prayer?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Hey, Brett, we have a frozen Imam here. Oh, no, it's moved. Thanks.
Okay. This is actually the burial site of the Shah of Iran. Remember, he was kicked out and he had to go into exile. And I don't remember. Do you remember the different places he went?
He was in Mexico for a while, and then after he died, they kind of repatriated him back to Egypt, and that's where he's at.
So at least
He
he got
was-
Islamic.
He was a
Real.
persona non grata for a while. They didn't know where to keep him. And it was a political move like not to bring him to the US. Mexico had him and one of the,
Repeat the question for the.
Okay, what's the tie to Iran? If you remember when the Ayatollah Khomeini came into Iran and kicked out the dictatorship that was there, that was the Shah of Iran that he kicked out. Another thing we did, and we in our booklet had several places we could visit. We decided to visit this place where they bring tons, and I mean 20, 30 more tons of garbage a day. And the people who live there, Sabayin, I think they call themselves, go through it. And like 70 to 90% of it, they recycle. So they're not paid to recycle this stuff. They just sell the recycling stuff. And even though it looks like garbage, the school kids are all dressed up. They're going to school, everybody's clean, so they are making money out of this garbage.
and it is a community. It has places like pharmacy and little stores and so forth. It's like a village, but it's like, I don't know if you've gone to other countries where they have garbage dumps being used as a place where people live, actually.
There's another picture, and you see a child going to school. She's not wearing a uniform, most of them did. Maybe she wasn't going to school. Well, of course, one of the first things you do once you get on your official trip is to go to the Great Pyramid of Giza. That's more than one pyramid there. And this is taken from the bottom of the Great Pyramid, and I don't know if you can just look up and see how high it is. And this was once covered in limestone, which is now deteriorated. And they would have other buildings there, a place where they would embalm the pharaoh or the other people, because they would have little smaller burials for wives or favorite retainers or such. And those were in granite, so that's some of the granite.
The granite came from the upper part of the Nile, and that's because they were so heavy, they probably couldn't lift them and carry them. So they were used sparingly.
Oh, also, when the Nile flooded, that's when they would take all the stones from elsewhere up the Nile, which is south, and bring them to the site where they would then be building during the non-flooding season. Now you can see how close they got the granite together with just their primitive tools. This was, you had the chance to go into the Great Pyramid and another smaller pyramid, which Koresh did, and the picture doesn't, I mean, you have to be there to appreciate it, but just he wanted to show that he did it because not everybody does.
Cheops is the largest of the pyramids there. And what surprised me was somebody who didn't have, who must have been a Vietnam vet with stubs for legs, meaning from the knee down. He had, those curvy little things like, and he was shuffling down and moving like, on that, which was amazing. It was quite a climb, and it's kind of narrow. You see that here? That is huge here, but the upper part of it, it was just about 3 or 4 feet high. So you really have to crawl.
And this is just a postcard picture.
Ah,
Everybody, that's part of your tour. You get on a camel and you just ride around in a circle.
yes.
That's the only view of the pyramids that looks like a desert. My kids went there and said, it's all city,
Yeah,
all around it.
it is. From one view, you see desert. From the other, you see the city, and they're building the city out.
Yeah.
So you got to take your view.
Yeah.
The new museum is close to the pyramids, so that's gonna.
For those who know, I didn't know this. Egypt for 10 years has been building a new museum. It opened this month, according to Time magazine. It's going to have not everything's moved because it's going to have, it's like 52 million
Square feet.
square feet. It's hard to imagine 100,000 artifacts, some of which have always been in storage, nobody's seen them. And including 5,000 objects from King Tut's tomb. And the good thing about King Tut, which I could say later, was, first of all, his tomb was buried. Somebody else built a tomb right nearby, threw all the garbage in front of his place. So they didn't find it till the 1920s. By that time, Egypt had gotten wise. They had an Egyptian with them, and Egypt got all the objects, except for a few they might have given him as thanks. So they have those 5,000 objects. It's almost worth going back.
There's a joke, or a guide would say, you know why the pyramids are not in Britain? Because they couldn't carry it.
Thanks for the questions, and remind me to repeat them.
Brett, oh, here we go.
Yes, and there's just a whole group, and actually, if you didn't pick it because I'm in it, it's just a nice picture.
Was it riding a
I wouldn't want to be on a running. Or very long. I once had an hour long or 2 hour long one, and then, oh my gosh, you know, come up this afterwards. So here's the Sphinx, and of course, you know, it's right there. I have the Great Pyramid behind it, and if you can see the people in the background, it kind of gives you an idea how big it is.
And you know, the nose is shot off by some Frenchman who was out there sometime.
Well, the latest reading I have is they aren't sure of that story.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
They pouring Sphinx into existence from the side.
Can you repeat the question?
yeah, did they quarry the Sphinx? Yes, they were, there are my notes. Yes, they were quarrying all around, and for some reason, instead of putting it into blocks for the pyramid, they made this Sphinx out of it. Mhm. Yes,
Yes.
Tom, what do they represent? Oh,
Usually in all old cultures and new ones as well, they would have incorporate the spirit of an animal to show that they have the strength, and the Sphinx is like the spirit of the animal. And they use that face there with lion's body. So you kind of incorporate the spirit of the lion as being like a fierce one, like the Vikings have those big horns and the helmet. This is a similar one.
and I will say, I'm taking a class in archaeology at UMD, and the instructor's pointing out, you know, this is what they found, so this is their educated guess, and it's only an educated guess. So tomorrow they may decide something, but that's today's version. That's just our postcard picture, another one. Now, these are 3 symbols that you may, depends on how much you know about Egyptology. 3 motifs that they have. One is the scarab, also known as the dung beetle, and that is a sign of rebirth. I read why, and it didn't quite make sense to me. Okay, the ankh, which we see a lot of, that meant everlasting. If you see somebody with an ankh, somebody's wishing them that they may live forever. And the eye is the eye of Horus, who is guarding you. And you will see this at different times.
I understand also the Anga that's shaped from the Delta Nile, the Nile Delta, the shape. The scarab there is the animal that comes out of the down on the soil, and they come at dawn. And that shows its birth at dawn.
Oh, thank you.
There's coffee.
They're saying coffee's available. Okay, and here in the old Egypt Museum, which we visited, is the eyes of Horus. And this is symbols of kingdom, being a pharaoh. And the one to my left, yes, to your left, is white. And that's a symbol of the lower Nile. To me, it looks kind of like a bowling pin. The middle one is a symbol of the north, which the red hat. And then the furthest one is the symbol of the occasional times when somebody ruled both the north and the south. Now this is called the Namar pellet, named after a place called Namar, N-A-M-A-R. And you'll see many things on it. At the top, you will see a cow with horns, that's a propitious sign. The king or the pharaoh, it's to show the off, you know, I'm the master. And he's killing somebody, and down below he's fighting people. And he has the eagle is also a sign, of course, protecting him. And the other side, to your left, you will see two, they call them sauropods. I think they made up the word. It's just kind of shown that it was united because Namur was what, this is 3000 BCE. It's the first written record in the world, if I'm right, because so many people wrote them on papyrus and other things. This was in stone. And you also see that it's killed people becoming king.
This was a propaganda poster to show the strength of the person. And there was in Egypt, the ancient Egypt, you'll see a lot of these guys were braggarts, just like we have them today.
And this is about 2 feet tall. This is a big statue of Horus, and he's protecting the child, Ramses II. You want to, the prototype pharaoh was Ramses II. And as all many Egyptians, he's wearing kind of like a snake on his head. I haven't figured out why.
The thumb in the mouth shows youth. Did you see this thumb in the mouth? That tells you it's a young person. And if they have a braid hanging to the side, it's also youth.
That a boy, not a
Boy,
girl.
boy,
Let's change sides. Never mind.
sure.
Now, this is a picture, it's called Seneb and his wife Senatite with their children. And I want the audience to tell me anything they notice about this sculpture. Somebody said color, yes. They frequently, does this sound contemporary, would make the man darker and the woman lighter. Anything else you notice?
Anatomically correct.
Anatomically correct.
Yeah.
But if you know what you're looking for, and it's not real plain, you know, can't see it real clear because he's sitting, but that's a dwarf. And dwarfs were just normal people. They didn't make any big deal about it. He could be a part of a royal family. If he had a statue, he was part of it, the elite. And the other things you notice, the woman that is wearing a wig. When you see Egyptian women with that type of hair, it's a wig. And the two children, you can tell that they're children because they got actually their finger in the mouth. And they're naked, often children were naked, and quite frequently you'll see paintings or sculptures of women naked, of men and women naked. And the boy doesn't have that hair lock which says it's male.
This will not pass in Florida.
Nefertiti. When I was just looking up information about her, fact is that this is considered one of the most beautiful busts in the world, in the art world. And a couple things I found out about her. For one thing, one of her sons was Tutankhamun. She was married at the age of 15, and by that time she was 25. She had given birth to 8 children. Whoa. And when her husband died, Akhenaten, she's mentioned for a few years and then she just disappears from history. Could just be because she's no longer married to a famous man. Could be she died, we don't know. This one I like because it's a typical statue in that the person is holding snakes. I don't remember why they like snakes.
Snakes in many cultures shows rebirth because they shed their skin, and that means that they are able to have a second life or a third life or so forth.
And he's standing on crocodiles.
And the crocs are also sacred creatures in Egypt. In fact, there are museums with the bodies of crocodiles. They kept them, they embalmed them, and they were pretty much worshipped as any other animal that's in history that's sacred. And why They live a long time and they're dangerous. And here's an example of the embalmed crocodile.
Now this is,
It was like, you know how we have trophies on the walls or
Yeah,
stuff the biggest fish, maybe those were.
actually, they're sacred animals. So they were just like a god.
she was saying maybe they have them like trophies, like, you know, you kill a bear and you put the head up on your wall, maybe that's what they do. There's always theories. Yeah.
I think they were loading the boat. They tripped across the bridge. Take everything.
Yeah.
Chariots,
You want to repeat that?
mountaineers.
I think- okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Go ahead.
Okay, this is a famous Rosetta Stone. This was actually found, it was written by Ptolemy. Ptolemy is when they're switching, the culture of the pharaohs is dying out. And Ptolemy, do you remember with the Romans coming in? Okay. And Greek, yeah. In fact, they had a lot of enemies at different times. They weren't always strong. They had weak times and enemies that come in from all over, and then a new person would come up and drive them out. It is, so it's by Ptolemy. When they did finally get to interpret it, he's saying, well, I'm the great Ptolemy V, and I donated money to the temple. I reduced taxes to do. And I restored peace after a rebellion. And I am God. Yeah, why not? Now, why were they able to interpret this? It was because it's written in three ways. One is hieroglyphics. One is demonic, which is kind of proto-writing, or they called it shorthand. They were starting to get into writing. And then the third part was in Coptic. And the hieroglyphics and the demonic did not have vowels, just like present day Hebrew does not. But the Coptic Greek had vowels, and they knew Greek. And so even with knowing the Greek, it took this French guy 20 years to interpret it, decipher it. And part of it is that the hieroglyphics may go right, they may go left, they may go up, didn't say they go down. And they may be a noun, and they may be a verb, and they may be an adjective. Adverb. I mean, it was really 20 years of work to figure this whole thing out. And I told you what it says, you know, I'm the great Ptolemy V. We're in the Egypt, still in the museum. There's a mummy. Mummies were in a case, in a case, in a case, like not quite stacking dolls because they're lying down, but yeah. There's another one. A lot of jewelry, and one thing they have beautiful jewelry, but it's very heavy if you look at the necklaces. Now, I don't see it on this piece that I found the picture of, but they would have a chain and back with a weight on it. So your necklace would sit here instead of going down here. Okay. And of course, they did have one room with objects from Tutankhamun. Go ahead.
These were young ladies and their guide there. I met them in the museum and I asked them questions like, you know, why are you here? And of course, they're students visiting the museum. What would you like to be when you grow up? You know, those kinds of questions that we're going to ask. And almost all of them, without exception, they want to be tour guides. They want to learn English. And it's kind of neat to see that and they have their famous victory sign.
Yeah, and in the city, women were everywhere working. Get to the villages and it's still traditional, but in the cities, the women were all places that we went. And then I had mentioned to only one or two of you that we went with OAT, Overseas Adventure Travel. And there's all kinds of companies you could go with. This one of the things they do is they do take you into villages to talk with villagers, which is wonderful. And this is, we are going, now the man, the white coat would tell us that he's a Nubian, which is from southern
Sudan.
Down the Sudan area where they're blacks. And they wear the white coat. And he managed a market where you could buy and sell animals. And we got to see, it wasn't sale day, but we did get to walk around. And there were goats, cattle, camels. And then if you were the person who had the animal and you're bringing it there, but the sale isn't for 2 days, you just brought a bedroll and put it on this cement wall.
Yeah, it's almost like, when the caravans arrived in the old days, this was the outdoor version of it.
Now, we did get to visit a Nubian family. This is not the best picture, I know. No, back to the first one. I had to show it because you see how tall the guy is. That's important. And the grandmother, that's important. The mother is holding her son who spoke excellent English, and so did the man and woman, not the grandmother. And then 2 cousins, and you don't ask why the cousins are living there. These are always extended families. But the guy, there were only 2 couples got here. They divided us up and the others went elsewhere to other homes. And so we asked us where we're from, and the other couple said, well, we're from California. And he said,
Yeah, Kobe Bryant,
in the Los Angeles.
Los Angeles Lakers.
And I said, oh, the Lakers, they came from Minnesota. And he said, Timberwolves. Like I say, he used to play basketball. Now he's a guard at a solar panel site, and they have a lot of them in this country, which is good because they have all kinds of sun.
Yeah, there's a question here. Was it a symbol on that shirt there?
What is the symbol on his shirt? No
Yeah.
clue.
Brett, you want to make up something on that? All right. Sorry, no, we don't know what that is.
Okay.
Yeah, and this family actually was living in a government housing, and they are Nubians, and they were pushed out of that area when they had the floods. The dam actually flooded them out, and there's a big issue with compensation.
Yeah, I was mentioned later, but yeah, and they were told you're going to be moved because you're going to be flooded, but they didn't always know when. And it's like one day they came and said, okay, you've got 1 hour and we're relocating you. And they took them to places where they didn't have enough houses, they didn't have water. And they said, and we're going to reimburse you. It is 59 years later and they're still waiting for that reimbursement. Yeah, I don't think they're very hopeful. So they say this is what happens when you're a dark minority. This is a beautiful picture. If you see there's soup by the woman, and Koresh is a fantastic cook, but I have never had chicken broth like that. The grandmother is a professional cook, and it was so good.
She said she was been preparing it for about 24 hours, and the whole chicken was in that broth.
Okay, this is a village you got to visit, and school children in this village. I looked it up. There are about 500 people. They were relocated. This is a different group of people who were relocated because of the water, but they're doing okay. And so they have their own school. The kids go several hours a day. Most of them go to grade school. Half the many go to junior high, and almost nobody goes to high school because you have to leave there on an island, and you have to leave the island and go into town, and very few do that. And the teachers are local men who are very underpaid, so they just do it a few hours a day and then they go back to their farming. But the kids are speaking English and learning that.
Yeah, and I looked at the chalkboard that they were using there, and it was very sophisticated math. And I also looked at some of the books that we're using. There were math, 4th grade level was 4th grade level that we have here, which was remarkable. And the travel agency who went to will go into villages and suggest to us when we go there to bring gifts for the kids. And we give them to the teachers, of course, and then they will share them. And most of us will bring books, pencils, crayons, and things like that. And then they will pass them on to the kids later on. OC's Adventure Travel was started by a woman who was a retired elementary school teacher. And they use quite a bit of the proceeds from all of these trips to develop local communities. And they build schools, they build wells, and so forth.
And actually, if you're interested in knowing more about maybe traveling to Egypt, talk to us afterwards. We got a lot of information, but we don't have that much time. Okay. This is where we went out to the banana and part of their farm.
This is on the banks also of that Nile River.
And here he is with a gentleman. We visited. This is fun. The woman, the native woman, is with her hands taking a glob of dough and spreading it out with this rolling pin in her hands and making it huge. Next is her is one of the people in our group who is not quite so skilled. And there, the other one, she got it, she's hanging it from the stick, stretching it out. The other one is trying to get it to stick to a rolling pin. And then they let one of the guys try it, and we decided that he made an outline of Australia. Yes, they made a pastry for us, and while we were visiting, they cooked it and we ate it, and it was really good.
Yeah, it's like phyllo dough, pretty much.
A lot of oil in it. And then they dressed us up.
Now, the gal in the village who was actually doing it was a quiet, shy lady. And our guide said that over time she developed speaking skills and a chance to organize the community. And now she's a local leader of that community.
And there we are. Can't really see what the pastry looked like because I've mostly eaten, but we are enjoying our pastry. And in this village, I mean, we went in 3 and I'm mixing all the pictures, but first they asked us to tell where we're from and they had a map there because they've hosted other groups. And then we brought a gift to the family and I just had to, and it should be something that tells where you're from. So both here and with the Nubian family, I brought a bag of the rock candy you get down on Hepzibahs. It looks like stones. And so I said, here, you know, in our big lake, we have colored stones and here they are. And they kind of looked at me like, how do we be polite about this? And I said, it's candy. Then they relaxed. We brought more practical gifts too. There we are enjoying a meal.
And they prepare the meal right in the house there. And it's a local dish usually in different places that we went. And we have conversation with them and we ask questions like, what is it like living there? And they ask us questions as well. So we share not only food, but also conversation. And we did several of these. This company that we travel with will do that. So you get a chance to interact with the local people. And they are not the upper class. They are usually the folks who are the majority of the population on the banks of the Nile River, but a cross section. So you have like, you know, the guy who was selling the animal, then they have the farmers and butchers and so.
This is more about food. One day they just gave us some money and said, go buy stuff for our soup for supper and learn how to haggle. So
And whatever we bought there, we got back on the ship and they were making it for us, which is good. Some more shopping.
meat carcasses.
Anybody guess what that might be?
Yeah, goat. And I must say, we ate a lot of chicken, some fish.
It's camel, Jill.
Oh, it's camel. Okay, I know. Except I need 2 people to get your record straight.
You can
I
tell
thought
the
small
tail
camel.
is
Oh,
the tail tells a story there.
okay.
I would imagine to attract more, we've got I don't know.
Let's make a theory and it might be right. At the hotels, and we stayed at really good hotels and they had, we had buffets and, you know, like 50 items, there's 100 items. I mean, it was really first class. All right. And that was just one serving. Go ahead.
Oh, and falafel. This is on our ship. This is a sailboat. Breakfast time, and we get a chance to do some cooking, and they're showing me how to make falafel. And this is the finished product for breakfast.
Now, this was also on our buffet on the boat. Do you know what it is? Jello. Had to take a picture.
Yeah.
And Koresh, of course, makes friends wherever he goes, so he made friends with the workers on the boat and invited himself to go eat with them.
And they were thrilled, and so was I. I was gonna need to rub shoulders with the workers there.
And this is, can you read what's on that napkin at the base of the table, or oh, the words are there? It says, Happy Friendsgiving. We were there for Thanksgiving. So the boat pulls up to this place where you can take everything off the boat, but you get to sit on the ground. They brought us out. As usual, we had, every meal we had wine. I don't care if it's a Muslim country, we had wine. We had a soup and a salad, and then the main dish and dessert. And this was our pumpkin pie. We had pumpkin pie. And we did have turkey and mashed potatoes. He apologized that he couldn't find cranberries.
He didn't know what cranberries
Oh,
were.
I think he did. We're talking to him and we said, our guy in Minnesota, oh, I've been to the Boundary Waters.
Yeah.
Okay. This is one of the places we stayed in Aswan, with, you know, where the dam is. What's the name of the hotel?
Well, yeah,
Cataract? I don't.
Cataract.
The Cataract, and there's a suite there. You've heard of Agatha Christie, crime writer, and one of her stories is Death on the Nile. She had a suite here that was, let me tell you, this is a suite. We got just a couple pictures we can go through quickly. The living room, the bedroom, bathroom,
Bathtub, yeah.
bathtub. And then from there, we got on this boat for 5 days. And this is the type of boat that Death on the Nile is situated on. It's called a Dahabaya. Dahabaya. Don't ask me to spell it. And there's,
He's the captain of our ship. And this is an unfurled sail, and this is in full sail. And there were just 12 of us who were guests on this boat.
they take up to 16, but the trip isn't always filled out. And most of the time, we are pulled by a barge that's far enough in front of us that we don't noise, so the engine doesn't bother us. But for one afternoon, they put it up for sale, and you just drifted. And he said, "Yeah, if we just went by sail, you'd be here 2 months instead of 2 weeks."
And what's interesting that this is flowing downstream, but the wind is blowing upstream. So you imagine that you actually are going the opposite direction. If this boat was turned around, so the sail will get the wind coming from the Mediterranean side.
And there we are, 2 of us just sitting on the deck, just enjoying ourselves. Life is good. And then, as you know, when the Aswan Dam was built, a lot of places were flooded. This one, which is called, you forgot to.
Yeah, okay.
First one we did, this was actually buried, and then they brought it up somehow and put it on this island,
Philae, the Temple of Philae.
the Temple of Philae. Well, go ahead. And now we're just showing, now you're getting into some of the places.
And this is, it says Philae here, yeah?
Yeah. Philae, Philae.
Jill.
Oh, you sure?
Okay. Yes, and we are getting down to seeing all the sites, and like I say, if we don't get to the sites, you can always look them up on YouTube or somewhere.
We'll go quickly through.
Well, first, though, let's see, any more questions? No, okay, well, we did get to see. This was a 2-week trip. And you can get them up to 3 weeks or 1 week.
It sounds a lot like when you travel with Witness for Peace.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. This is Tutankhamun's tomb, which we saw his bones or his mummy before. Okay. We're just this was a man, a Nubian, who just gave us a talk, mostly we already shared with you what he said.
Yeah, he was exiled during the, they had Morsi and the guy who was a dictator in Egypt, and he went to the Emirates and then came back. Now he's a math professor at the University of Cairo and a musician as well.
Now, Yeah, you can see Abu Simbel is the one that's so famous, and if you can get on YouTube and find out how they built that, was a fascinating movie they showed us. And lucky, some people get to see it at night. We did. And you can't get a good picture at night. That's just to say you did. And then you go back during the day. You see how colossal it is, and they actually moved it 200 feet to a safe place and built a mountain around it.
This is Abu Simbel.
And from here we went to Luxor, and you won't get to see Luxor.
Okay. This is in Abu Simbel.
This is where the sun only comes in twice a year, you know, one of these places again where the sun comes in and it goes back and it shows there's 4 gods. The sun only shines on 3 because one who isn't there is the top, Ptah, who's the god of death.
Underworld, yeah.
More pictures.
There are several Nefertiti here, and this is a very good example of it. There are several of these carved around the place. It looks as if it's a stock photo. This is
When you go into tombs, they have all this carving and painting on the side. And they're very much in boats, and their gods travel on boats. And the yellow is supposed to be, in the circle is the sun. Just keep going. This is just a tiny sample. Yeah.
can you see the watermark on this temple? Yeah, at one time, yeah. They lifted this and bring it up to higher ground.
Just like you see. I just like, look at that, go back just once. Look at the person and how tall the statue is. That's in Cairo.
There's a lot of talk about Hatshepsut, which was a female pharaoh. And of course, we can see some of the places in the exhibits, they had somebody chiseled out the female because they didn't want to have a female pharaoh. So it's hurt, you know, they kind
There's
of
your ankh and the eye.
there's a restoration. There's a German university that's restoring them. This is actually the true color of this place.
And they would have been brilliant before they were sandblasted. And this is actually our last one, and this is what's next, because when the Christians came in, they carved a cross into one of the pillars.
That's graffiti again.
Right. Okay. That's it.
Questions?
That's it. Well, thank you.
There's all kinds of books for you to look at, and we will answer questions afterwards too. And especially if you're interested in going, we can give you a lot of advice.
Just need to have a little timer.
Yeah, so at this point, definitely keep on asking Jill and Koresh anything that you're curious about. Check out all the amazing artifacts. I'm here to let everyone know that next week is Earth Week. Every week's Earth Week, but especially next week. And so the forum is going to be titled Here Comes the Sun, and we'll talk more about the solar update for UUCD, as well as feature some of the stories around town of people that have installed solar. In case any of you are curious, there is a solar co-op buy going on right now that you can still sign up for. So that's next week. And for now, let's give it up for Jill and Koresh one more time.